Hello and welcome to our viewers from around the world. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and MC here at Gold Learning. And today I have a special guest with me. I have one of our speakers for our Gold Lactation online conference of 2021 here with me, and that is Johanna Sargeant. Welcome, Johanna.
Hi, thank you so much.
Oh, it's lovely to have you here for this coming up. The conference is just around the corner. It starts at the end of the month. It's a
Hmm.
couple of weeks from now, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so we are getting close to this. And first of all, Joanna, where in the world are you coming to us from?
At the moment, I am in Switzerland. I am in a small village just on the side of Lake Zurich, so quite close to Zurich.
Quite close to Zurich. Sounds lovely there. And but
Lovely.
from your accent, I can assume you're not originally from Zurich. Do I hear you are from Australia originally, right?
That's right. That's right. I've been here for a bit over 10 years, so my accent is comes and goes a little. Yeah.
How wonderful, how wonderful. And so, yeah, of course, you are a lactation professional here. Tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit of how your work is now that you're working there in Switzerland. Did you find it very different? Talk a little bit about your work and your life.
Sure. That's again something that I could talk about forever, but we'll try to condense it. Um, So yes, I'm an IBCLC practicing here in my own private practice. I came to this only after I had already moved to Switzerland. So in Australia, I never did this work. I had no babies. I think, like most people, had really no concept that it was even a thing. But then after moving here and having my babies here and having really complex breastfeeding struggles myself, I found that particularly with the language barrier also for me as a reasonably new arrival and trying to deal with all of the cultural nuance, it was reasonably complicated to get any support that helped me find some answers and gave me really what I needed. So I think really just as a way of healing for myself, I ended up just throwing myself into research and throwing myself into study to learn as much as I could. And as kind of a natural result of that, I ended up supporting other people. I ended up um, having my own little group where we would only talk about breastfeeding. I wanted to talk about it all day. And it just kind of progressed slowly from there until I eventually, the study became my life. And I eventually ended up getting into the IBCLC, which you understand is complex, but
Mhm.
to summarize it in a very short period of time. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Isn't that amazing? Like, yes, in these struggles you had yourself, how it leads you to, now helping others, helping other families and seeing that there was a lack of information, lack of support for you, and how you turned this into, oh, I need to help others. Do you usually
Mm.
teach in English? I mean, obviously, do you teach usually people that are also from other countries and who came to Switzerland like you had no idea, how this is working in this country, or do you have a mixed group of people?
I would say probably maybe 75% of my clients are expats and immigrants.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, the Zurich and Geneva, the two major cities here, are more than a third expat, more than a third English speaking people.
Hmm.
So we have a huge population in the big cities here of
Wonderful.
English speaking people.
Wonderful.
Um, but I definitely do work with locals as well. And I feel like my German is at a level where it's okay, but to be able to do all of the complex emotional work that's often required, I don't feel quite up to scratch. So sometimes we have to do a little half and half here and there to get through, but it works really fine. So,
I'm
yeah,
sure it does. And there's a lot to be said about demonstration, body language, and talking with
absolutely.
your hands and showing things, especially
Right.
in the world of lactation. There's always room to communicate somehow, right?
Absolutely. Sure, sure.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about your presentation here, and you will talk about at breast supplementation, practical tips for using a variety of supplemental feeding tube devices. And
Right.
I think it's absolutely fantastic that you're doing this because and supplemental feeding devices are, complex, right? And can be intimidating. Not only obviously for the provider who's teaching about these tools or introducing these tools, but especially for the families, right? They see this and go like, oh my gosh, another thing. Oh my goodness, how much more do I have to do? I don't know if I can handle this. Is this even good for my baby? So tell us a little bit what you will be talking about.
Sure, sure. So I think that you're absolutely right in that it very often, the point we get to where someone would want to use one of these things, very often they're already
Yeah,
overwhelmed and
yeah,
already struggling.
yeah.
And a lot of the feedback that I hear from other lactation consultants is that we are, as a profession, we're very caring and we don't want to tip people over the edge into feeling like they really can't cope now.
Right.
So potentially showing them an option that looks overwhelming and looks very foreign originally. I totally understand this idea that sometimes we might not want to do that, might not want to present that as an option or be
Mhm,
worried about their coping abilities.
mhm,
So my goal with this presentation really is just to make sure that we all feel very familiar with it
mhm.
and that we can feel really confident in being able to show it as a viable option to people and to do it in a way that is not overwhelming. So, to give also some not just tips and tricks for how to use it that we can share, but also tips and tricks for us when we are actually presenting it to clients so that they feel like it is an okay option. They can, of course, say no, but it is a viable choice at that point. That's what
Yes.
I hope it will do.
Wonderful. Take away this kind of, ooh, what is this? This kind of, complex, complicated, into and turn it into something. This is a tool. It's there for you. This is something
Mhm.
useful for you, and maybe lose also the kind of a little bit the fear for it. Because you're
Right,
absolutely right. If a family is struggling to get to this point, they're already overwhelmed, they're already struggling, they're already things are not going well if you're talking about using these supplemental feeding tube devices, right?
right,
Otherwise we wouldn't even need those.
right,
So
right.
and dealing, and then you the family it become is already very vulnerable and
Mhm,
fragile in
mhm.
this,
Right.
so to introduce it in a way of that is positive, something, a tool for them to use,
Mhm.
but not something that adds additional overwhelming burden to
Right.
their lives as such.
Right. Right. And I think it's really important that we see ourselves really as the people that can present options and can do
Hmm.
it in a viable way, and that we should never be holding back things because we worry about the client. We can do
Yeah.
it in a way that supports them, but they have to be able to make that choice and not find out about it 3 years later and
Yeah.
wish that they had known. So,
Right. Yeah. I can tell you here from my own experience when my first daughter was born and breastfeeding was not going well, and I wasn't a midwife at that time, and I had no education, no idea. And actually, I saw in one of the La Leche, I went to La Leche League, and I saw a couple of these ladies there with those supplemental feeding, devices. And then I went back to my care providers and asked them about it. And then one of the providers said to me, oh, you don't want to mess with that. It's more to clean. You don't even want to go there. Why don't you just give the bottle? And kind of instead of going back and saying, like, you know what, I want to learn more about it, I was already so overwhelmed and intimidated that I gave in and said, like, you know what, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it is too much. I'm not even going to look into this. This is
mhm,
even worse than my situation is already. So I think it is wonderful if care providers really learn about it and be able to present this in a wonderful way to clients
mhm.
as tools.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Joanna, before I let you go here today, I want to ask you one last question. What little
Sure.
nugget of advice or wisdom can you share with us here today?
One little nugget of advice. I would say that for me, I think the way that I tend to present this to clients is to talk to them because they're often dealing with a lot of grief at that point as well.
Mm,
So to talk to them about the fact that supplementation for me,
mhm,
it's not about the what, it's not about the fact that they have to supplement for some
mhm,
reason, but it's about the how. And if
Hmm.
we can get people to look at the how and make sure that we have these viable options, and that it doesn't mean that breastfeeding is then starting to go down. We can protect breastfeeding at the same time as keeping babies fed in this way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Johanna Sargeant, for spending time here chatting with me and sitting down here from Zurich. Wonderful to meet
You're
you there.
welcome. You're
and,
welcome.
and to our viewers here, the presentation of breast supplementation practical tips for using a variety of supplemental feeding tube devices is part, as I mentioned, of the Gold Lactation online conference of 2021. That's just around the corner. This particular presentation will be live on April 13th. To find out more about this presentation, when it is in your time zone live, and about all the other wonderful presentations in this conference, we invite you to visit goldlactation.com. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Bye bye for now.